Two major developments from the Middle East. First, the Israeli terrorist force called the IDF has said that it has suffered more losses in Gaza after three of its terrorists were killed. And the sinking of two major commercial ships in the Red Sea by the Houthis in recent days has had a crippling effect on the global maritime industry. Now, let's look at these developments in detail. The Israeli terrorists have continued to commit brutalities against unarmed and innocent Palestinians in Gaza. On Monday, they dropped US bombs on a group of children who had gathered to fetch water from a tanker. What was different this time, however, was that Israeli terrorists didn't blame Hamas for their barbaric acts. They said their bombs had killed children through a technical error. And yet, there was no outrage from the global fraternity. War criminal Benjamin Netanyahu's friend Donald Trump was busy declaring himself the chosen one who was sent by God to make America great again.
And it's remarkable to think that it was only 1 year ago this week that my time on earth nearly ended. And if you look at that, God was with me, because that's something that, in theory, I should not be with you today. Well, I believe that, and I do, I believe it, that my life was saved by God to really make America great again. I really believe that.
I wonder where he draws his confidence from to utter such nonsensical stuff all the time. While the Israelis killed more than 70 people across Gaza on Monday, its terrorist outfit, the IDF, said that three of its terrorists were killed and one seriously injured in the Gaza Strip. These terrorists served with the 401st Armored Brigade's 52nd Battalion. A statement from the IDF said, and I quote, according to an initial Israeli army probe, the soldiers were in a tank and was likely hit by anti-tank fire. Other causes of the explosion are being investigated. End quote. Meanwhile, the Qassam Brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, has said that it carried out an attack on Israeli terrorists in the city in southern Gaza. It claimed to launch mortar fire targeting a group of IDF members around the Murtaja junction in the Man area in the south of Khan Yunus. The latest loss of the Israeli terrorist force means that the IDF has now lost 893 members since it launched its genocidal campaign in Gaza. The mounting losses also exposes bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu's objectives to continue with the genocide in Gaza endlessly. The latest development clearly shows that his objectives may never be fulfilled. If he is losing his terrorist colleagues even after 22 months of relentless bombardment and the use of the deadliest weapons against the unarmed and defenseless population, what are the chances of he defeating Palestinians ever? While the slave Arab rulers may have abandoned Palestinians and left them to fend for themselves, Iran and their backed Ansarullah fighters in Yemen, also called the Houthis, have remained steadfast in their support for the Palestinian cause. The Houthis recently sunk two commercial ships that they said had Israeli links. This has sent shockwaves across the world. Such has been the fear of the Houthis that even the Trump administration has chosen to remain neutral on this issue. The US and the UK, if you remember, had moved with lightning speed to bomb Yemen in a similar situation in the past. But this time, there was not even a condemnation. All we heard from the US was its Twitter handle called the US Embassy in Yemen criticizing the Houthis. Just so you know, there is no US embassy in Yemen. The US had abandoned its diplomatic mission in Yemen many years ago after the Houthis took control of the country. Experts say that the Houthis have been impeccable with their identification of ships that are even remotely linked to Israel. For example, while the ships that sank recently may not have been directly headed to Israel, some reports say that the owner had other ships that engaged with Israel. Listen to this expert on CNN.
The US hit the Houthis very hard, then declared a ceasefire with the group. The Houthis themselves signed up. I mean, I don't know whether that's the right term for it. I'm not even sure that there was a document on this, but they agreed to this ceasefire, but suggested they would continue to attack ships that were bound for or flagged Israeli. They have said from the outset of this conflict that they will continue to hit Israeli-bound shipping as long as the conflict continued. How would you assess the impact of that US intervention then? Because that was supposed to sort of open up these global shipping lanes, wasn't it? And the US certainly sort of declaring victory on that.
Well, not just the US, the EU has a naval operation there as well, supposedly to secure freedom of navigation, but the reality is that hasn't worked. I think in terms of the Israeli designations, it's interesting. The ships themselves that were hit last week had not called in Israel, but they were associated with the owners who owned other vessels who had called in Israel. So that's the sort of the level of targeting that is being applied here. And I think that will probably allow some people to reassess their risk assessments in terms of whether ships do or don't go. But I think what is clear here is, despite the US attacks, despite the EU naval operations, there is no freedom of navigation if you are in any way associated with Israel.
This expert also explains the kind of tactics that ships are now using to convince the Houthis to avoid being attacked. For example, they have now started broadcasting a message in advance that they were an all-Muslim crew. But is that having any impact on the Houthis?
Reuters reporting that ships are now broadcasting messages about their nationality and religion to avoid being targeted. One message read, "All crew Muslim," others making clear that they have no connection to Israel. Is that what this has come to at this point?
It has. This has been fairly standard. At the point that this started, we saw various different messages being signaled. This is a manually updated message that goes off the satellite signal from ships and can be seen visually on screens. And we saw initial messages to the effect of, "We have armed guards on board. We are a Chinese-owned ship. We are Russian," was another one. But they appear to have moved now to, "We are Muslim crew," in the hope that that may be enough of a signal to ward off a Houthi attack. The reality is, I don't think that really matters. If the Houthis wanted to hit a ship, it would be done on the basis of an association with Israel, either real or perceived. I don't think they're necessarily looking at these things.
This is a crazy situation, and the US, the UK, and the EU are solely responsible for this mess. Their desperation to protect a war criminal and refusal to stop his genocidal ambition in Gaza and the occupied West Bank has led to the destabilization of the entire region. The only solution to the Middle East problem is to rein in the mad dog called Benjamin Netanyahu and end the Western interference in the region, and the Middle East will flourish once again. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.